Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia and I have a newborn baby named Lily. Today I will share my journey on how I conceived baby Lily using my frozen eggs at the age of 41 years old. When I was 34 years old, a family friend approached me and suggested that I should freeze my eggs because at that time I didn't really have a partner or a stable boyfriend. After several conversations that we had, how being a 34 years old woman, my biological clock is ticking and my eggs exponentially declining in terms of the number of eggs as well as quality. It didn't cross my mind to freeze the eggs until this friend approached me, and I decided to do some research, and I actually called Melbourne IVF. And when I called them, they said, well, because I'm a single woman and I don't have a partner, and what they call basically freezing eggs for social reason, I actually have to pay a full price without any government subsidy. If you don't know, in Australia, if you do an IVF treatment, Australian government actually give you a subsidy and you get about 30% of the cost back. However, because I don't have a partner and I'm doing my egg freezing because of social reason, I have to pay the full amount. And the amount that I quoted for one cycle, it was almost 14,500 Australian dollar. So when we talk about one cycle, is basically you go through a hormone treatment to produce a follicle so that this follicle can turn into an egg, and then they basically freeze or snap that eggs at that time in your womb, in your uterus, so that it doesn't it doesn't ovulate into your period, and then they harvest the eggs and then they store the eggs. That would be a one cycle. So after having a conversation with Melbourne IVF, I decided to do a bit more thinking, and I think it was probably 3 weeks after the phone call I decided to see a fertility doctor and decided to make up my mind to actually go through with the freezing the eggs process. So I met my fertility doctor after a recommendation from Melbourne IVF, and then in the first appointment, my fertility doctor walked me through the process of eggs freezing, and she said that let's do a scan in just to look at the number of eggs that I have, and then looking at the possibility of how many follicles I have, and these follicles turn into an egg. So when I scheduled the scan and I went for the scan, my fertility doctor told me I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is you might have to go through several cycles because there aren't many eggs in my uterus. So I told myself, okay, this is going to be a very expensive exercise, because if one cycle costs 14,500 Australian dollar, so if I have to do 2 or 3 cycles, that means it will cost me about $50,000 or more potentially. So when they talk about doing multiple cycle, this is because to make freezing eggs worthwhile, you need a minimum 10 eggs, because when I was told at that time, I'm 41 years old, at that time I was 34 years old, when you freeze the eggs and then you defrost the eggs, the chance of the egg surviving is actually 30%. So, and out of the 30% survival of your eggs, so if you freeze 10 eggs, you get roughly 4 eggs surviving, and then out of those 3 eggs, you know, they inseminated with sperm, and then you just need 1 good quality eggs to produce a healthy baby. So I told myself, okay, this is very interesting. I decided to go through with the process, knowing that I may have to do several cycles, and you know, I probably just, you know, what went through my mind was, when I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to have a baby, but having that 1% chance of wanting to have a baby is good enough for me to go through with the freezing the eggs process. So I decided to go through with the process, and my fertility doctor said that, okay, let's try to simulate my follicle with a hormone treatment, and then we'll see how many eggs turn out. So after a week seeing my doctor, she prescribed me with these injections. So the injection basically, you inject yourself in the morning or the same time at night. For example, you pick a time. I think I did it in the evening after dinner. So you do it for 1 week, one day in the evening, for every day for 1 week. So that's basically to simulate the follicle to turn into eggs. And then after 1 week, I did that. I mean, a lot of people had emotional heartache, and you know, because of the hormone, but I wasn't. I just treated like, okay, after dinner I brushed my teeth, I injected myself, and that's it. The needle's very small, didn't hurt. Psychologically, it's just so hard when you have to, I injected myself in my stomach, which is the fattest part of your body. So you just pinch your stomach and then you inject it yourself with the hormone. I think psychologically, it's just so hard for me to inject myself, because usually someone else did that to you. And at the same time, I'm not a big fan of needles. So I had to do that myself. But I said, you know what? It's not going to kill you. So I just pinch my stomach, and then, you know, sometimes I stare in front of the mirror. Took me probably a minute or 2 before I had the courage to just jab myself. So I did that hormone treatment injection every night for 1 week. And then after that, my fertility doctor prescribed me with a trigger. A trigger means, you know, once your follicle turns into eggs, they want to snapshot that egg so that it doesn't ovulate and become a period. So what I did basically, throughout that 1 week hormone injection process, I went to see my fertility doctor again, and she scanned just to keep an eye on how my follicle turns into eggs are doing. And before she prescribed a trigger, she did a scan, and she said, okay, it's looking good. So she prescribed me a trigger, and then the trigger, I could not recall whether I had to inject myself for a whole week or just few days, 3 days. I could not recall, but the whole process took 2 weeks basically, from the time that I decided to do it. And then they prescribed me a hormone treatment where I had to inject myself for a whole week, and then I had to follow up with a trigger injection, and then, you know, scheduling for an egg retrieval. So after the 1 week hormone injection, they give me a trigger. As I said, I could not recall whether that's a 3 days treatment or a whole week treatment, basically just to snapshot your egg so that it doesn't ovulate. And then once I injected the trigger, I basically let my fertility doctor know. I was scheduling for a scan, and then she said, okay, the eggs are ready for retrieval. And then she basically scheduled me in to have a half a day, or what they call in Australia a day surgery, where you came in the morning and then they put you to sleep, and then they harvest your eggs, and then you wake up and then you have a day rest to recover from that egg retrieval. So I believe that was 24 hours after my scan, post trigger injection, where I was scheduling into the hospital. And I came into the hospital in the morning. I remember my mom drove me in, and then we basically went into operating room. An anesthetist came and put me to sleep, and then an hour later I woke up, and in my hand there is a number 25. What it means, my fertility doctor told me before she put me to sleep, I will let you know how many eggs we managed to retrieve, and I will write it in your right hand. So when I woke up, an hour post eggs retrieval, I've got number 25 written in my right palm of my hand. And then I knew 25 eggs were harvested. And then my fertility doctor told me, well, out of those 25 eggs that she harvested, which is magnificent by itself, considering in the beginning of the scan she told me that I didn't have many follicles or potentially many eggs, so I may have to go through several IVF cycles. So but she managed to retrieve 25, and she wrote a big smiley face and said, well done. So 25 eggs were retrieved. Out of those 25 eggs, 19 were good quality, what we call worthy of freezing. So out of 25 eggs, 19 eggs are worth freezing. And basically that's the whole process. And after 2 weeks, I had 19 eggs being frozen in Melbourne IVF. I did not even have to do another cycle. So the whole cost end to end cost me $14,500. Which is interesting, because if you think about it, to produce a baby, there are many moving parts. For example, your quality of eggs have to be really good. Your womb, whether you use your womb or surrogate womb, surrogate to actually conceive a baby, the womb has to be healthy. What I call the oven has to be healthy. Your partner sperm has to be healthy. So there are many moving parts to produce a healthy baby. And someone asked me, wow, is it really worth $14,500 to to have basically not 100% surety for you to produce a baby? For me, I guess $14,500, it's quite a significant amount of money, but it's not significant enough for you to discount that small percentage of you having kids. So that's the reason why I decided to do it. And someone also asked me, a family member actually asked me, how many cycles are you willing to do it? If one cycle you need a minimum 10 eggs for it to be worthy of eggs freezing. I probably would be willing to spend up to 3 cycles, so 50,000. So it's definitely worth it. So my recommendation for all of you young women, we were told that we can have our cake and eat it too. I just want to let you know that as you turn 30 or mid-30s especially, your quality of eggs are exponentially declining. The same applies to number of eggs. So my recommendation, if you're not sure if you want to have a baby, you haven't found a life partner to have a baby, I highly and obviously your age is 30 and above or mid-30s, I highly recommend freezing your eggs, because as you can tell, I'm a living proof of, 3 weeks ago I gave birth to my beautiful baby girl, baby Lily, and that's out of my frozen eggs when I was 34 years old. And back in the days, it wasn't common for me to, I guess, for women to freeze their eggs for social reason. So when I did that, I think about 12 to 18 months later, a lot of media, television, and newspaper actually contacted me wanting to understand why would I spend that amount of money, or went down the decision to freeze my eggs. So that's basically my story on eggs freezing. A lot of people asking, what is the difference between going through I guess an IVF process to conceive a baby versus my eggs freezing experience? So the process are actually the same. The difference is with social eggs freezing, I have to pay the full amount without Australian government subsidy. So I don't get 30% money back. And with IVF process, you get 30% a government rebate. And also with social eggs freezing and the conceiving a baby through IVF, the process actually the same, with the exception the eggs doesn't get inseminated with a sperm and put it back into your uterus. The difference is my eggs go straight to the freezer. So that's basically the difference. And thank you for tuning in into my YouTube channel. My baby Lily's actually just waking up from a nap, and I'll try to bring her here so that you can see how she looks like. Hi everyone, this is baby Lily. She just woke up from a nap, and I will try to change her nappy and feed her. I'll see you later. Bye.